Is Alisa Johnson. I am the president, co-founder of Dogs on Deployment. I think all of you know me. Today I'm going to be going over our Q2 State of the Union. So essentially where we are as of our second quarter of the organization and where we're going. So this year has been a huge challenge for Dogs in Deployment. The biggest thing that we were able to accomplish last quarter was bringing Kylie on board as an employee of the organization. And in that, she has taken over as our marketing director of Dogs in Deployment. And we have done a huge push for outreach and campaign awareness and program advocacy with her coming on board. So I just kind of want to put that as a front of our conversation today, is that our most recent investment into our organization has been to improve our ability to create outreach and to create awareness by adding on a third team member for Dogs in Deployment. So just wanted to point that out. Also, for anybody that hasn't been on one of these calls, we will do a FAQ at the end. So please, if you have any questions during the call, feel free to drop it in the chat box for Courtney, and then we'll go ahead and do an FAQ at the end. So with that, again, I am Alisa Johnson, the president of Dogs in Deployment. And today I'm going to be sharing with you the update of the progress that Dogs in Deployment has had within the last quarter. We started doing State of the Unions at the end of fiscal year 2023, found it extremely important to be providing insight, not just on our successes that we constantly try to share on social media and through our blog, but also really get into the challenges that we face as a nonprofit in this really unstable philanthropic environment. The part of this presentation that I really put a lot of work into is the transparency and accountability of the organization, and being able to come today to not only show our supporters of our organization, but our donors, our partners, our sponsors, our grant givers, but also the beneficiaries to see what is Dogs in Deployment doing, who are the leaders of Dogs in Deployment, who are making the choices and the decision-making of Dogs in Deployment, and really sharing our commitment to both share the achievements of this organization, but also bring up the challenges and the obstacles that we've encountered. So that way we can kind of create this awareness and hopefully find support within our existing network so that we can overcome these challenges and thus become a sustainable organization. So first, I want to thank everybody for coming onto the call today and taking some of your time out of your day to be a part of this organization and seeing what we're doing to help and where you might be able to come in to help. So as a reminder, I always start with what our mission is. Our mission is to give America's heroes peace of mind concerning their pets during their service commitments by providing them with the ability to find people and resources to help them. The biggest thing here is that our vision is to create a future where all military members can serve with the peace of mind knowing that their beloved pets are always cared for. We aim to ensure that no animal is needlessly surrendered to an animal shelter. And why this mission is really unique and vital is it addresses both the unique needs of the military community, where we have service members that often face unexpected deployments, relocation needs, and having significant stress just created in their lives due to uncertainty. And by providing this reliable pet boarding network, we alleviate that biggest concern, allowing them to focus on their duties without having to worry about their pet's care. To kind of show how that counteracts to the pet community is that we also help the companion pets of these service members. So because our organization aims to ensure no needless relinquishment, we ensure that we are supporting animal shelters by reducing impact from our military communities through relinquishment. In the future, I'll get into this, but we do plan on expanding our boarding services so that hopefully we can create a more impact on that animal community by ensuring that other pets that belong to other deserving communities are also finding reliable pet care in their time of need. So ultimately, our organization exists to ensure service members have peace of mind, but also so that no pet ever needlessly is surrendered to an animal shelter. Wanted to remind everybody that if you didn't get a chance to join us on our last State of the Union, it is on YouTube, and this one will also be presented on YouTube afterwards. Just a kind of a quick recap of what our last State of the Union was. We had kind of just come out of our end of year giving and doing some experimentation with how we were doing marketing. This is the time that we brought Kylie on on our team. And we really did see some quick successes with some of our pivots that we made. And so in terms of our end of the year giving last year, we, instead of putting a big surge on donations as our ask, we put a big surge on needing recruitment. And we did see a big recruitment effort happen. However, with that recruitment, we realized that our biggest problem, which is the technological improvements needed to sustain our Hero Pet boarding network, continues to remain an ultimate issue. So no matter how good we get at recruiting, we're never going to be able to really solve the problems we face internally as an organization because we're still lacking very specific resources that I'll get into later that support the ability for us to be successful. Also, I touched last time on some new partnerships that were created, and I will go ahead and give some update of where those partnerships stand in this presentation. So first, let's start with the Hero Pet Boarding Network. As most of you know, our organization provides free nationwide pet care for deployed service members or service members going on training. That process is known as our Hero Pet Boarding Network. We have gone over several names of what we were going to name this program, but what we have realized it to be is a Hero Pet Boarding Network. That network piece is very important because like a rover.com or a care.com, we operate at such a level of potential efficiency because we are not physically placing pets in foster care or what we call our DoD boarding homes. Instead, what we do is we provide the connection piece for the approved service member to be able to find boarders in our network that are willing to watch their pet, connect them so that they can make that successful placement on their own. That's important to understand because that process is the underlying core of what the Hero Pet Boarding Network is. dogsondeployment.org. If you go to the website or you download our app on your phone, you get access to this Hero Pet Boarding Network, which is the critical function of the organization. I wanted to throw out a little bit of statistics so you have an idea of user numbers for the organization. So in fiscal year 2023, you can see in the dark blue, and fiscal year 2024 in the orange represents the number of pet owners that we've had registered for our website. Now, these are military members that have come to us in some form or fashion and said, hey, I either need or I might need boarding for my pet. Am I eligible to receive services? And you can see that number remains pretty consistent and has even slightly grown in the last quarter. Contrasting to that, in the red and the light blue, you see fiscal year DoD boarders and fiscal year 2023 boarders and fiscal year 2024 boarders. And what we see is a significantly less number of boarders rather than the pet owners that register. And this always makes us worried because in a stance that we might see a surge in pet owner applications come to our website needing help, we don't have the recruitment numbers that match the organic need that we have. And so if at any time we want to do program expansion, we want to do volunteer recruitment, we need to immediately respond to a ship that's deploying unexpectedly, or a ship perhaps that is being extended. And we have other issues that I'll talk about later regarding imports of pets to and from overseas duty stations. All of these really make us concerned at the fact that we have a need and we have a desire to want to be able to fulfill that need and grow our program, but our current technology infrastructure does not support the ability to be able to do that effectively or efficiently. Despite that, we still have managed to provide a very effective platform for military members to search for volunteers willing to board their pets. In the dark blue here, you can see the number of pets that were successfully deployed in fiscal year 2023 versus the number of pets that were deployed in fiscal year 2024. And you can see a pretty significant jump in the number of successfully placed pets. Now, I should note that is 100% at the success of our executive director, Courtney, who is the one that puts in all of the hours to ensure that regardless of our technological infrastructure problems with our website, she is ensuring that our military members who are approved on our network are still able to successfully connect with volunteers. So whether that means getting together with Kylie and doing targeted location posts, if we have military members in a certain area that need assistance, or if that means having to, make personal phone calls to try to make an arrangement happen, we do that. But we do that at a detriment of not being able to focus our efforts in other areas of the organization that are struggling, which we will also talk about next. I do want to point out that when we talk about the community we serve military pet owners. And as a life of a service member, something I'm familiar with, most everybody on our team for the most part has some sort of connection to the service. We see a significant amount of people coming to Dogs on Deployment. You can see here in this dark blue, 74% of pet owners that come to Dogs on Deployment use our organization as their primary plan for pet care. That means they don't have other people or they're not considering necessarily other options for their pet except for Dogs on Deployment. And then in this second graph, you can see in the red, and 55% of our pet owners are on short notice deployments, meaning that they have less than 1 month of notice before they need to either deploy or train. And those numbers show the extreme need and reliance that service members have on our organization, that because of our technological shortfalls, as well as our financial challenges, which I will go into more detail, we worry that we're not going to be able to help every single person that comes to us as we continue to receive more requests for assistance. And thus we risk having pets that might needlessly be turned into a shelter, or a service member that has to go through that heartbreak. In addition to our Hero Pet Boarding Network, we have another program that's underneath the Rich Setzer Memorial Fund. There are 3 key programs under the Rich Setzer Memorial Fund. The Veterinary Assistance Program. This is what we use financial. In the past, we would use any fundraising that was made in excess to our basic needs or our basic budget. Basically, we would have a pool of money and we would say, okay, let's start allocating this money to the people that we serve, which is our military members that are in financial need. And so we developed these 3 programs. The Veterinary Assistance Program helps with emergency vet care for the most part. We typically pay for emergency surgeries, or chemotherapy treatments, end-of-life treatment, etc. Our Pet PCS program is where we assist military members who are financially responsible for moving their pet from the US to an overseas location and back. We provide financial grants to assist with those costs, which have been rising exponentially since the pandemic. I've spoken to that before in the past, and I will continue to speak on the next slide about that. We also do a spay-neuter program. In order to use the Hero Pet Boarding Network, pets need to be spayed or neutered. And so we also promote responsible pet ownership. So we have a program where we use funding to ensure military pets and veteran pets are spayed and neutered. In fiscal year 2023, we were able to grant $32,578. And we had $8,700 that was granted in in-kind services. We had a 40% approval rate. Now, that is good. However, from the history of this organization, we have been able to, in the past, have enough funding for the organization that we were able to double that amount in 1 year. I want to be able to get back to that organization, but there are very large challenges that come with the ability to be able to do that. First is the amount of requests we have received, especially in the post-pandemic era, has continued to grow exponentially. In Q1 alone, we had 125 applicants. In Q2, we had 129. And basically, each of these requests, whether it comes in from the VAP, the PPP, or the SNP program, each request averages about $2,000 per request, and we just don't have the funding to be able to approve every request at the amount that that person is requesting. So some things that we tried to do was, instead of giving higher grants to fewer people, we have concentrated on doing smaller grants to more people to try to disperse the funding fairly. But the problem is we just keep getting more and more people applying, and our financial revenue model is not supporting the amount of people that we are having come to us for assistance. So effective July 3rd, 2024, we've made a strategic decision to temporarily temporarily suspend the Rich Setzer Memorial Fund at this time. We'll go into our plan of how we're going to respond to that, but essentially, unless it is a invitation only, we are no longer accepting unsolicited requests from service members until further notice from our website. A big part of that has been because of the PCS issues that have been going on, not just internally with our military members, but on a global level. So effective August 1st, there's going to be an embargo on transporting dogs to the US on passenger flights. This is significantly going to impact our service members in a way that we had to call an emergency meeting to discuss what our action plan was going forward on this. First, the impacts to the Pet PCS program is suddenly, before the pandemic, we would see an average grant from transporting a dog from San Diego to Japan, for example, might cost $2,500. After the pandemic, that same flight is now $5,000. Now, after this embargo, if they can even get the flight arranged, and because for the most part, they would have to be using cargo transportation, that cost is now $7,000 or upwards of dollars. And it significantly limits the amount of options that military members will have, especially coming from Europe to the United States. And we've already seen several pet shippers and airlines say that they are no longer shipping animals at all. And at the end of the day, the greatest financial burden of all of this is on the service member that suddenly has to figure out what to do with their pet that is either overseas already, or they are having to PCS overseas and the dog has to stay back behind in the United States. That is where our Hero Pet boarding network comes in. Because of these travel restrictions, we're seeing more and more pet owners that even with a grant still can't afford to bring their dogs with them overseas. And so in the past, we've been a little bit more restrictive on whether or not we allowed pet PCSing because we had such a well-funded pet PCS program. But since that has changed in the health of that program, we have prioritized and opened up our border network to allow for pets that can't make the travel due to travel restrictions or travel challenges. This creates a huge strain on our existing resources of our organization and meeting the needs of those service members. Additionally, our Hero Pet boarding network is only a national program located within the United States. So if we have a service member that's stationed in Germany and needs a boarder in Germany to watch their pet while they figure out what they're going to do to bring their dog over if they've already moved to the United States, we don't have the ability to support that service member in our current Hero Pet boarding network. So I've kind of given this big doomsday picture. It is not all doomsday, I promise. I will leave this call with a very positive, happy story. But until then, we're going to continue to get into what are we doing about it? So our technical issues is the biggest challenge of this organization. We have frequent bugs that occur on our website because our code on our website is last released in 2018 for the most part. Look at your phone. I mean, how many of us have phones that are from 2018? And yet our website is based on code from 2018, which means every time you access it from an updated browser or an updated mobile device, there are going to be issues. The amount of time that I personally have to spend doing bug testing and QA reports and working with the programmers just to maintain our current website is becoming unsustainable, and it's becoming detracting to what we really need to do, which is finalize our product roadmap for an updated website. This updated website is going to hit one of the biggest concerns we have as an organization, which is security. We have a website full of military members' personal information and basic information on military deployment and activities. Now, while we do our best to ensure that we comply to all OPSEC rules, we have our website is hosted on AWS for security, and we do a consistent data dump of all information that is posted on our website, so that way we don't keep anything. But that said, our code is still at risk because it's outdated and it's not responsive to the growing technological needs to have effective security. But we can't make those security improvements unless we have the funding for it. One of these huge improvements that I would like to be able to take on, for example, is removing the requirement for dogs in deployment to do the military verification. Presently, we have to do the process of ensuring a service member is who they say they are, that they are in fact in the service, that they do in fact have a deployment coming up to make sure that they meet our eligibility guidelines. However, if we could have a partnership or an integration with a third party like ID.me, for example, if anybody has any connection out to ID.me, I would love to talk to you. But the idea of being able to remove the security risk off of dogs in employment, so that way we can concentrate on what's really important for our organization, which is ensuring the networking part, the piece where the service member gets to connect with the boarder and they get to make that relationship happen, is the thing that we're concentrating most on, not on the security aspect if we can outsource that. All of this, however, requires money, and that is where we come into our financial constraints. We've seen both upticks and downturns in giving since the pandemic, and its impacts on organizations across the board, not just ours, have been felt. In the past, we were able to really move ourselves forward through some challenging times in the pandemic, because we had a strong reserves. However, we are no longer able to eat into our reserves anymore. We maintain a 6 months of operational reserves for the organization, and everything after that, we are now operating on a month-to-month basis, which is not ideal, but it is the reality of our situation. So some of those reactions that we've had is to suspend that funding to the Setzer Memorial Fund until further notice. We have suspended ongoing maintenance to our website development while we secure the ability to launch a new product with a new program source code. And we've also cut several, looked at our quotes from all of our kind of contracts that we have to maintain our organization, and seeing where can we cut costs and where can we be more efficient and effective while maintaining the most important thing, which is the people behind this organization, to ensure that we have the manpower to be able to effectively push out all of our programs as being helpful to the community. So we've identified our immediate needs. The first thing we need to do is get with our website. Without our website, without enhanced security, we are not able to have a successful Hero Pet Boarding Network, and we are also not able to successfully manage the Setzer Memorial Fund, which that entire fund and grant program is also managed by our website, which means that even if we were to receive funding to give out to the grants, we're still dealing with outdated technology and issues and usability problems to ensure that we're able to effectively execute that program. So we have taken some responses in the last quarter, really, to be able to address some of these growing problems and seek solutions actively. One of the biggest things that I'm extremely proud of this year is we've onboarded several new board members with varying types of strategic expertise to the board of Dogs on Deployment. And many of you are on this call today, so I am so thankful to see your faces and to have your support. Another thing we're looking at doing is how to diversify our revenue streams, both in grants and sustainable funding, but also in branded merchandise, which I will briefly share at the end of this slide as well. And then also expanding the Hero Pet Boarding Network, which as an organization that seeks to prevent unnecessary pet relinquishment. Since I started this organization in 2011, it's always been my dream to be a leader in the rescue industry in general. And the way that I always envisioned Dogs on Deployment going was to be able to say, if we were able to create a product that allows service members to find free volunteers willing to board their pets while they're on deployment, how could we then take this technology and offer it to local animal shelters, such that if they need help finding a foster home for one of their dogs, then they can access our network if they're an approved partner. When I have put that into a product roadmap, I realized that there are a lot of other groups and communities that we can benefit if we do this properly. So in order to do this the right way, I am building in a product roadmap that includes specific milestones and features to support other needing communities of people. The first one is firefighters, police, and first responders. Now, prior to 2020, we had opened up our services for police and firemen, and after 2020, we opened up our services to all first responders. The problem is that we've never been successful in being able to actually have that program expansion. One, because we didn't advertise for it, and two, we didn't advertise for it because our website isn't set up to accept police or firemen or first responder type applications. So in order to accept those kind of applications, we need to make a more universal application process for our website. That's our first community that we're looking to expand to. Our second community that we're looking to expand to, and motivated by one of our board members, Mandy Pratt, and myself, my own personal experience, is to expand to victims of domestic violence or survivors of domestic abuse. So people that might be trying to go into suitable housing or a protective agency or receive medical treatment, but can't because they have an animal and they're fearful for that animal's safety or well-being. We want to be able to support them through the Hero Pet Boarding Network. So a part of our overall plan to increase the efficiency and effectiveness and security of the Hero Pet Boarding Network is also to expand it to other needing services, with the absolute end goal of being able to help animal rescues on our long-term product plan. So I've kind of already touched on what we're doing, but how are we actually looking to get there and make this happen? So I've mentioned, and as a nonprofit, I will always have to mention money and our funding strategy. Sometimes I look back at dogs unemployment, and for those of you that might not know this, during the pandemic, I did go back to school and I got my MBA, and I'm currently working on a master's in nonprofit management and leadership at the University of San Diego. And there are moments where I feel like I have all this experience as a nonprofit leader, but I also never had any idea what I was doing because I did it all sort of at the whim. I was reacting to the environment that I was looking to support and the environment that I served in as an active duty military member. Now looking at this organization, doing it full time and having an educational background that makes me more self-aware of this organization's role in the community and how we can best ensure its long-term success, I keep going back to funding strategy. And the amazing thing about this organization is that up until recently, we have relied on individual giving contributions for our organization. So at one point in time, we had raised, over the course of several years, of course, over $1 million, and our average transaction size was $50. You got to think about that. That is $50 of people saying, I support you and your mission and what you're doing. And all of those people collectively surpassed $1 million. So when I think of that, I have to make it known that that money then must be protected as a nonprofit. It must go to the mission. It must be used to help the people that we say we need to help. And we have seen a tremendous amount of support from our individual donors, but what we have realized in our post-pandemic world is that the effort to continuously sustain that level of giving is unsustainable for our organization. And so that's where we come into our next part, which is diversifying revenue streams. In the last month, I have applied for over $100,000 in grants to specifically support the Hero Pet Boarding Network only. This is the first time our organization has ever really prioritized grants as a source of funding. Before, it was something we'd have a volunteer kind of do, and it became very challenging because we were still in the process of really understanding our programs and the language we needed to use to speak to these grant makers to make them understand what it was we were doing. And by investing in grants and investing in how to write grants as an organization, we put in a lot of prioritization to secure funding through grants this year. And we are very excited that we have already received our first $10,000 from the Laura J. Niles Foundation and Business for Good, which one of those was a connection from one of our board of directors. So we're extremely thankful for that support. However, in order for us to effectively manage our Hero Pet boarding network alone, on the left-hand side, you can see our current budget. It has a range there because we started with a higher budget, but because of the rich Setzer Memorial Fund program being suspended at this moment, we've removed some of that funding from our budget. So we are kind of in this budgetary transitional period as we get something that's a little bit more tightened to sustain us for the rest of the year. But what we do know is that it's about $110,000 annually to build out this new Hero Pet boarding network. That includes not only the code, the cost for the programmers and the coding, but it also includes the marketing of the new website. It includes the operations of managing the new website. It includes the databases and the hosting that's needed to have that website, and it includes the manpower required to manage the Hero Pet boarding network. So it's not just we have X amount of dollars that's needed for the programming code to develop the new website, but we need to be able to raise that plus this bubble to support the entire Hero Pet boarding network being executed. And because of that, Hero Pet boarding network is, in theory, going to get a very soon new makeover. We're going to develop that new user-friendly site, which is going to make it easier for military members to register. It's going to make it easier for them to find people. It's going to be less of a hassle for people to connect. And then, of course, that mention of expanding our services to the first responders and domestic violence. All of this encompasses having a reduced impact on those animal shelters that I mentioned in the beginning. And a part of our program expansion also includes ensuring we get funding for an activity that we currently do, but we want to turn this activity, which is a shelter outreach program or a shelter outreach activity, and turn that into a program that has a funded support structure where we're able to create budgets for our time spent connecting with animal shelters, giving presentations and education to animal shelters about our program and our services, sending out educational outreach information, etc., to ensure any military member that comes to an animal shelter, if they're looking to adopt, they're told about dogs in employment, or if they're looking to relinquish a pet, they're told about dogs in employment. Another thing that is big on that improvement of our Hero Pet boarding network is the administration time that is currently used in the back end, either from myself or Courtney, in managing the very large website that it looks very simple when you look at it online. When you go to our website, it looks, clean, but for the most part, it is a very big beast in the back end code. And all of these improvements are going to be aimed at streamlining all of that code, making it less susceptible to risk, and making sure that we have something that we can have building blocks upon and not something that is going to need a wipe clean and a restart again in the future. We want to build something that's scalable, that's sustainable, and adaptable to the growing technology around our organization. So in addition to diversifying revenue streams through grants, we do have other revenue streams that are either new or are being more developed. And I mentioned I would mention these before, and that's our Operation Drool Overload Dog Treats in partnership with Lazy Dog Cookie Company. This is a dog treat bag. It's about $7 to $8, and a portion of those proceeds gets donated to Dogs on Employment. And this presents a huge opportunity for our organization to create sustainable revenue for the organization that does not, that can go to support the management in general or the overhead of the organization, so that we can free up our ability to do more with program spending when we get either restricted grants or restricted donations, which we want to be able to offer to our donors. We want to be able to say, you have an opportunity to say you want your donation to go to supporting the veterinary assistance program because you have a personal connection to that fund for whatever reason. So we do that by ensuring we create new revenue streams. So a way that you could help, for example, is go to your local pet store and see if they have Operation Jewel Overload. If they don't, give us a call and maybe we can get some in your local store. In addition to the Lazy Dog Cookie Company, we have Bowser Beer as well, which you can purchase online, and they have our own bottle that has our little custom labels on it that support our organization. And all of this is supported by our board being able to look more at what is our strategic financial goals and what milestones are we setting for ourselves for the rest of the year and into fiscal year 2025 to ensure that we can fund each of our programs and sustain them. So ideally, once our Hero Pet Boarding Network, we fundraise what we need in order to launch that new website, then we have our other pots of money where I need money to fill the veterinary assistance program. I need money to fill the pet PCS program. I need money to fill the spay and neuter program. And our plan then is to set financial goals for each of those funds, fill them up, and then be able to disperse that money to our grants. The beneficiaries, the military members that actually come to us for help. So our intention is hopefully by the end of the year or early next year, our Rich Setzer Memorial Fund will be open again. Specifically, I've recruited 2 new volunteers to the organization that have experience with grant writing. And that is going to be their upcoming task, is to find grants specifically to support the Rich Setzer Memorial Fund programs. So really, you know, everything in this organization comes down to the simple fact that we rely on community support. We are a grassroots organization. I always have to tell people that we're smaller than we appear. But the core of what we do is very small, it's very unique, and it's very tightly knit in the community that we serve. And it's important to realize that, because I think sometimes we can get so lost in a world of believing everybody's kind of out there for their own purpose. And I know the people on this organization, I know the people that volunteer for this organization as boarders, the ones that have done it several times, and nobody signs up to be a boarder for their own purpose. They do it because they truly want to help a service member and somebody's pet. And if we can remember that when we're thinking about what organizations we're supporting or what organizations we want to donate to, the smaller ones, whether you donate to Dogs in Employment or another one, do your research and ensure that you're supporting something that's at a grassroots level where you have people that are really on the ground looking to make a difference in their local communities. And I'm really proud of where our organization has come to in that. After the pandemic, we did see a lot of difficulties with our community engagement as we lost several volunteers that were our community coordinators. But we are seeing people coming back to the organization, looking for how to get involved, how to host local fundraisers, how to have events for us. And so those opportunities remain open for anybody to come to the organization and say, hey, I'm located here and I would like to help. What's the best way that I could do that? So I promised you I would share a positive story. And this certainly was one for the books. A few months ago, Dogs on Employment was tagged in a Facebook post. And in that post, it said that this cane corso had been turned into an animal shelter because of their service deployment. We hear this story all the time. And every time we hear it, we react. whether that is a situation that we can help, like Blue Moons, or a situation that we can't help, unfortunately, with. We do our part to ensure that, did the animal shelter know about us beforehand? And if they didn't, they better know about us after the hand. And if there's anything we can do to reunite that animal to their pet owner, we will. Such is the case as Blue Moon. As soon as we got information of Blue Moon's story from our community, we reached out to the animal shelter. We confirmed the situation. They were very kind to be able to get us in contact with the pet owner, who absolutely did not want to give his dog up, but he got extremely short notice deployment orders. And as you can see, he has a King Curacao, which is a dog that is extremely difficult to place. And many boarding facilities won't even take him because of his breed. And so he was at a loss. And the story reports him being very emotional in that moment. And it was thanks to one of our boarders who responded to our post of, hey, we have this dog that's in a shelter. Now we're looking to help him. She was able to go help us get the dog from the animal shelter and board him for the time that his owner was deployed. And they recently were just reunited, and it was a moment full of tears and slobber and happiness. So, I mean, if that doesn't show you like where we bring together these communities, you have a service member that's in desperate need, you have an animal shelter that doesn't know what to do, and you have somebody that just wants to help, and then they actually get to help. So that to me is an absolute success, a case study for the ages for dogs on deployment. And we're very excited. We will be posting a blog on Blue Moon and his journey on our website here in the next week or so. So do look out for that. So finally, I'm going to go ahead and start turning this over to questions, but I do want to throw up this last page here of ways that you can support our future. Of course, always donating, but beyond donating, we're really looking for people to become involved in the organization, being a volunteer, whether that's signing up to board a military pet, coming on in one of our virtual volunteer positions, which you can learn more about those on our website or on our volunteer match profile, or coming to events to support us. Again, I mentioned those branded merchandise. Please make sure that you support us with your dog's future favorite treat. If you don't already use Operation Jewel Overload, you can get them on all major suppliers, Chewy, on lazydog.com, as well as Amazon. And then don't forget to spread the word. Make sure to follow us on social media. If you know anything about Instagram, it is a very difficult place to operate as a nonprofit, and we really don't like to spend any of our money on advertising. So please help us never have to do that by making sure you like, share, comment on our posts so we can increase our organic reach. Also, there's this piece of advocacy. I mentioned that CDC regulation has had a huge impact, not on just military members, but on everybody. So if this is a cause that you feel passionate about or personally affected by, we do recommend that you contact your legislators. There are a couple of letters out there that people have been sending in order to better advocate for policies to support military pet owners in that travel issue. So if you have any questions on that, please feel free to contact with us. Finally, we are looking for partners across the nation. We are a San Diego based organization, but we exist everywhere where there is a military base. Part of our big push has always been to work with local breweries, for example, but now, as opposed to just working with breweries for events, we're actually going a bit further, trying to create some more branded type merchandise or branded type brews with various breweries across the country. So if this is something that interests you, go to your local brewery, tell them about Dogs Employment, have them contact us. And then lastly, it's not just about what you give to us, but how can you bring other people into our organization to know about us? Any kind of fundraising event is not only a great way to raise money for dogs in employment, but more so get the community involved. So if you work in a local business that ever does any kind of fundraising or community events, please get in contact with us. We would love to be a beneficiary of your choice. So with that, I cannot believe that this picture was taken 13 years ago. That is Sean and I when I had first commissioned. And we had just decided, we basically had just decided to start Dogs on Employment. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation now over to Courtney to read some of our questions that we might have received.
I don't have any questions that came to the chat.
Wonderful. Well, if that is the case, I will go ahead. Okay, we will cut this part out, and then Courtney, I'm going to say like a thank you, and then we can end the recording. Okay. So thank you everybody for joining Dogs in Employment State of the Union for the second quarter of fiscal year 2024. There will be another one scheduled sometime in the fall, so please ensure that you follow us on social media so that you can see when that meeting happens. And again, thank you for being part of the mission to support our troops and their pets.